We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today is Professor Marc Schwerdt from Lipscomb University. We're talking about Thursday's primary election and what it means going forward in the U.S. Congress race and U.S. Senate race, and of course the governor's race as well. We've been talking now about the governor's race. You mentioned the Supreme Court nomination. Do you think that's going to become the major factor, the major political issue of the fall? It's not clear. The Democrats have said they're going to oppose, but it's not quite clear how much oomph they're going to put on that. So that may give Phil Bredesen a chance to not have to go to the wall about this.
He may not have to go to the wall about it, but it will demonstrate, especially to Republicans who, you know, it's a midterm race, so obviously turnout tends to be lower.
Well, the Senate and Supreme Court have been a real hot button issue for Republicans. They turned them out in 2016 for Donald Trump, and I'm sure they'll try to push that button again. Right,
and so if they do come out like that, then even if the Democrats don't mount a spirited, you know, kind of like, let's make this sure that Kavanaugh doesn't get confirmed, it could at least reinforce to Republicans, listen, this is the type of thing that is at stake if we don't hold on to the Senate and if we don't hold on to the House.
Marsha Blackburn has been very, very keen on hitching her wagon to the Donald Trump star. That probably helps her in Tennessee, but there's always the uncertainty of what tweets come out the next day. So, but on balance, it's probably worth doing for her, absolutely?
It's definitely worth doing. Again, though, we're right in that section where, what are the independents going to do? They're the ones who are kind of wishy-washy about how they feel about one day to the next about what Trump does. The Democrats are definitely against what Trump does. The Republicans give him unprecedented levels of support. So it's the independents where so much of this is going to happen, and that's why, as we said with Bill Lee, he's going to soften the Christian message as he moves towards the center. Marsha Blackburn is going to have to do the same thing. Soften a little bit the hard edges of a Trump and what he does, but reinforce the idea that she's not abandoning those policies.
Well, she basically says she's a card-carrying conservative. I mean, she's been pretty hard-line on this thing. How can she soften those talking points? I've never seen her soften her talking points the whole time she was in Congress.
Well, what she has to do, though, is say, these are policies that are working for everybody. And economically, she can make a better case.
But if the economy becomes the tariffs, not necessarily economic growth, then suddenly she's going to have to be on the defensive, because Donald Trump has been sort of back and forth on tariffs. He's for them, but then suddenly they go away, and then suddenly they're back on even larger than ever. And she has no control about that issue.
She does not have any control about that. But as fast as those things have changed, again, we still have 3 months.
Ward Baker is one of the top advisors for Marsha Blackburn. He told a Nashville group a couple of weeks ago that Marsha Blackburn was going to win by inflicting 10,000 cuts on Phil Bredesen. Do you have any idea what he's talking about?
I really don't, in the sense of, we already well know what Bredesen stands for, what kind of person he is, and things like this. So I'm thinking that just means we're going to dance around a lot of things, as opposed to trying to go for a jugular. There's really no kind of like one kill shot, if you will, to use, you know, graphic language, to really go after Bredesen.
What is the role of Donald Trump here? Do you expect him to be here at least once or multiple times and come for both the governors, for Bill Lee and for Marsha Blackburn?
Yes, I do.
So do you expect the Democrats to be campaigning together? Both Phil Bredesen and Carl Dean are former mayors of Nashville. They certainly know each other. They're in the same political sphere.
Right.
Phil Bredesen might have a lot to offer Carl Dean. He got more votes yesterday.
He did, and I think he certainly does have a lot to offer Carl Dean. Are there any coattails? That's something that we really don't know at this point. But Carl Dean needs turnout, and that means he needs a lot more people to turn out for him when Marsha Blackburn has, Bill Lee has a lot lower floor of people who will definitely come out. The Democrats have to emphasize more of their top end, because the Republicans have a lot lower floor that they can count on. They can always count on the 3 to 4 to 5% advantage over Democrats at the very least when it comes to turnout itself. Democrats have to be a lot more enthusiastic.
Because the state has become more of a Republican state. What we saw yesterday in the 2-to-1 turnout, because people were not only attracted by the amount of enthusiasm and excitement going on in that primary, but
there's just more Republicans here now.
It's been okay to vote. I mean, I can remember a time when it was the other way around.
I know, I can too.
So it'll be interesting to see. Going back to the money thing, there's a history in Tennessee of spending a lot of your own money doesn't necessarily work. There was Jake Butcher and Franklin Haney back in '74, the Gold Dust Twins as they were known back then, although I suspect if we looked at how much money they spent,
relatively unimpressive nowadays.
We would probably laugh about the totals. Jane Eskin spent a lot of money against Ned McWhorter in the primary for governor in '86. So what's the lesson for that? Does money work better if it's in your bank account as a threat to be used than actually using it in your campaign?
Well, there's always kind of a two-tiered kind of approach to looking at the role of money in terms of elections. If you have a lot of money, certainly it does have a deterrent effect against possible challengers. The thing we saw in this governor's race was everybody had enough money to put forth a very good race. So they had to put in their own money in order to just stay paced with everybody else. The other side of that is that if you do have to spend a lot of money, it may actually show something about your vulnerability more than it does your strength as you get up above a certain threshold.
So what do people look for going into November? What's going to be the key thing that will turn both races quickly?
I think it has to largely depend upon the economic performance. If there's something that suddenly, say, shows that the Dow Jones suddenly shows a correction, or if for some reason unemployment suddenly goes up, or the economic track seems to go off, I think that's mainly what we're going to look at, unless, again, you can always look at a foreign policy crisis or something like that, but those are kind of more black swan kind of events than anything.
It's going to be an interesting fall. It's already been an interesting election, and probably the most expensive one. We haven't had that much money spent in the Senate race compared to the Ford-Corker race back in 2006. But we're probably going to set a record there too.
Probably so.
Money makes the world go round.
Yes, it does.
Particularly in politics.
It does.
Professor Schwerdt, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it, and we'll probably have you back going into the fall.
Always happy to be here.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you can be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's a new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.